There's been a lot of talk in the news, online, in the media, all about inflation over the last couple weeks, last month. And it's talking about because of what we have done in the US as far as printing money, as far as what the government's doing, there's going to be inflation that happens over a short period of time that it has made a lot of people nervous. And so what we decided to do today for this podcast is, well, let's talk about how inflation can impact an overall retirement plan. And so we're going to take you through a few different scenarios with a made up client. Her name is Cindy. And we're going to walk you through how we tackle the question of how inflation is going to impact a retirement plan.
I will warn you, we're going to talk about a lot of numbers. So if you would like to see and understand this information a little bit better, we invite you to go to our website, which is pomwealth.net/blog. And we'll have an article there on this topic of inflation that kind of walks you through those numbers. So listen through the podcast, and then if you need to have the article, make sure you go visit the website. We also encourage you, if you've not had a chance yet and you want to attend our masterclass, it's online and it's right there on our website. It's called 3 Keys to Secure Your Retirement. I will tell you, it walks you through those 3 major elements of what it takes to get to and through retirement. And if you've not had a chance yet, we also ask you, if you feel that this is a 5-star show, please give us a 5-star rating, as well as please write us a review. We certainly do appreciate it. Before we get into this, though, we have to have a quick disclosure, and then we'll get into the show.
That's right. The information contained in this podcast is intended to provide general information only and not to be considered individualized advice. Different types of investments carry different levels of risk. As always, please contact your financial professional for advice appropriate to your specific situation. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to our Retirement in Action. And we are today going to tackle a topic that we are hearing more and more about, especially since we've had so much printing of money here in the United States, and that is inflation. And so a lot of people say, hey, how's inflation going to affect me, and what's it going to do to my retirement account, and how is it going to, how are things going to look? And we're going to walk you through a scenario today that I think will help you to appreciate the power of understanding inflation. I will tell you, though, one of the things that we show folks when we're building a retirement income plan is that the 100-year average on inflation is just a little bit above 3%. For the last decade, what is it, Merce?
For the last decade, it is 1.7%. So you've got some years in here in the last 10 years where the highest it really ever gets is 2%. So that's where they get the average of 1.7. And then the last 100 years, that 3.2% that you're talking about, that average, you've got years where we saw inflation. I'm looking at a chart here. Back in 1947, inflation was 14%. Back in 1918, inflation was 18%. Closer in 1980, inflation was 13.5%. So you've got some pretty large numbers there. And then there's some negative inflation years as well, but it's kind of all over the place. But the 100-year average is 3. Last 10 years is about 1.7.
So when we're doing an income plan, which we talk a lot about with our potential clients as well as with our clients, we are saying, hey, we need to figure in inflation. Now, Merce and I, on all of our plans, start at 3%. And the reason why is we feel that is higher than what we would expect for it to be over a period of time throughout retirement. There could be elements in a retirement where you see inflation from one year or another that could be high or higher than the 1.72. But what we want to do is say, hey, let's do this thing conservative. And so what we want to do right now is we're going to walk you through a scenario. And then in that scenario, we're going to talk about all kinds of variables that we can do. And what I really hope comes out of this discussion is that you begin to think, okay, there's more than one way to look at my income in retirement. It could be a multiple of scenarios, and that'll help you start thinking through your own income plan. So let me kind of give you the baseline here of who we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a client that her name is Cindy in this example. She's 67 years of age and she is just retiring right now. So here's what her deal is. She's done a great job of saving. She has saved for retirement $1.5 million. She has Social Security that she is going to be getting of $3,000 a month. And in our discussion, Cindy says, hey, you know what? I think I want to go do a lot of things right now. I feel good. I'm healthy. I want to be able to travel. I want to go see my grandkids. I want to be able to do things in retirement while I'm younger. So while I know I don't need $7,000 a month, I want to build my income plan based on $7,000 a month. So when me and Merce hear that, the first thing we do is say, okay, let's go build the plan. And so we're going to put that in. Merce is going to put that into the retirement income plan software, $7,000 a month. He's going to put 3% inflation on it. So Merce, can you walk us through those numbers?
Yeah. So once again, just as a quick reminder, Cindy is 67. She has just retired. Radon mentioned her Social Security is going to start almost immediately, and she's going to receive $3,000 a month. Another point here that we talk about is that typically with Social Security, in the history of Social Security, you've been getting these things called cost of living adjustments, or COLA. In a way, they're kind of tied to inflation as well. But in the conservative nature that we like to build these plans, we assume that, hey, Social Security is not going to give you a raise or a COLA adjustment for the rest of your life. So we want to build the plan out conservative. So we do that by saying there's going to be no COLA. We're going to run inflation at that higher end of the spectrum, which is 3%. So her expenses are $7,000 a month. We're going to run inflation at 3%. Radon mentioned she's got the $1.5 million that she's done a great job of accumulating. On that piece, we have to assume some type of rate of return on those assets. They are invested. And so also, once again, going to the conservative side, we're going to say, well, let's just assume an average rate of return of 5%. You may talk to another advisor or see something else where it's safe to assume that you can make 7, 8, 9, and 10% based off of the history of the S&P 500. We just don't agree that that's a good number to use from a perspective of planning out someone's retirement. So we stay conservative and we say, let's just go with 5%. If the plan works at 5% growth, well, if we do better, well, that's just a cherry on top. So 5% growth. So immediately we go and we look and we say, hey, how is this going to work out for Cindy? So we start looking at how her cash flows are working. So she's got 3,000 coming in the door, 7,000 going out the door. So obviously there is going to be a draw on her $1.5 million. And that 7,000 is going up every single year. So the next year it's 7,300. The next year it's 7,500. By the time that Cindy gets to age 80, that 7,000 today has now become 10,000 a month that she needs to live on. By the time that she gets to age 90, that 7,000 a month has become 14,000 a month that she needs to live on. So already you're seeing a huge impact that such a tiny little number of 3% can have. And we have to have the assets or the overall plan that's going to be able to sustain that. So what we like to do is look at, well, how are her assets, that $1.5 million, how is that sustaining itself? Is it sustaining? Is it growing, or is it decreasing? So in this situation, it is decreasing. So by the time we get to age 90, we like to use age 90 as a benchmark. By the time we get to age 90 for Cindy, remember now she's spending $14,000 a month and her assets have basically dwindled down to what we would say an uncomfortable number, under $100,000 left in the account, right around 56,000, just based off of the pure math here.
Yeah. So that basically is, in our opinion, that's too close. Now, here sits Cindy. Cindy is like, oh my goodness, I thought I had done a good job saving, but now I didn't realize how this was. But now here's what we have to do as retirement planners is really kind of help Cindy start to think through her income. So first of all, remember what we said. She does not need 7,000. She wanted 7,000 because she said, you know, when I'm younger, I want to do more things. And so when we continued talking to Cindy, what we found out is that really what she wanted was a $5,000 baseline, but basically $2,000 extra a month to go travel and go do things and to have fun and all those kind of things. So there's a couple of different ways that we can look at this. One, we could say, well, then you don't need to keep up with inflation, with this higher inflation on 7,000. It's really on 5,000. So we don't have to run it at 3%. We don't need to keep it that way, because if she had her budget where her spending plan way down low, then yes, we need to have it at 3%. So now remember what Merce just said. We're going to show you we're going to express to you here over audio a few different options so that you can see by doing a little tweaker here or there what it would look like. So the first thing we're going to do right now is Merce is going to tweak the portfolio, the plan. And in the plan, what he's going to say is, instead of doing a 3% inflation on that 7,000, we're going to do a 2% inflation. Still higher than the last 10 years. But by doing the 2% inflation, what we're saying is, look, over the next 10, 15, 20 years, if inflation is at 3, all that Cindy has to do is just kind of say, okay, well, I'll cut back over the next 10 or 15 years on all that fluff spending. So that's one way. So Merce, now remember everyone, 56,000 roughly was our age 90 number with a 3% inflation. What is it now at a 2% inflation?
Yeah, so just by that one tiny little tweak, a 1% swing on inflation, Cindy now at age 90 goes from having $56,000 left over to right at about $765,000 left over, just from that one tiny little tweak there on inflation.
All right, so Cindy is feeling much better at this point. And so we're talking it through and we say, well, that's one way to do it. But sometimes people get hung up on that inflation number and they go, wait a minute, is 2 enough? Maybe I shouldn't do 2. So let me show you or express to you another way to do it. So here's what we're going to do this time. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the software and we're going to just say $5,000 as our baseline, meaning she says, I need 5,000 to be able to do my basic things. 2,000 is really just for having fun. And so Merce is going to now split it out. And what he's going to do is he's going to put the 5,000 at 3% and the 2,000 of fun money at 0. We're going to say we don't need to inflate that. And here's what Cindy says. And by the way, this is extremely common that somebody says, you know, when I retire at 67, whatever it might be, there's about 10 years there that I just want to go have my fun and do my extra stuff. But then I'm probably not going to want to do anything or not anything. I don't want to do as much. And by the way, we've been doing this. I've been doing this for 20 years. We have many clients that is a really good number. It's actually 10 is a little bit longer than what is needed. So now we went back and he made the tweaks, $5,000 at 3%, $2,000 at 0, but he's going to run that 2,000 for 10 years. And then that 2,000 is going to drop off. Now, can you tell us our numbers on that one, Merce?
Yeah. So at 90, with the 5 and 2 split that we're doing here, Cindy at age 90 has about 1.1 million left over versus the previous scenario where we ran it at 2% inflation. So she had a little bit over 700,000 left. And the previous before that was a 3% inflation. She had about $56,000 left, cutting it very close in our opinion. So like Radon was saying, this is, it's very close to what we see every single day. It's very close to reality of how the spending situation actually unfolds in retirement. And you say, well, yeah, I'm going to do some things for 5 to 10 years, but then I'm going to slow down and I'm just going to go back and not travel as much or whatever it is. So in this scenario, Cindy's at age 90 with the most money left over at the end of the day, which is the 1.1 million. We had this conversation the other day with a client, and all we were doing was doing exactly what we're doing right now, which is playing with the inflation numbers and just seeing how things look. And he was kind of wondering if he could retire this year, if he needs to work for another year, or does he need to pick up some part-time work? And when we made that switch from the 3% to 2%, he said, wow, I didn't know that a 1% swing on inflation could have such an impact. And, we had the conversation. It's not to say that we can just make inflation whatever we want it to be. Inflation is very true. It's very real. But think about it from the retiree perspective. The retiree is not really subject to some of the things that are inflationary, like travel. A retiree can typically or theoretically travel whenever they want to travel. But if you're working a 9-to-5 job, you only have certain periods of times or certain holidays or vacation times that you can travel. So you are subject to those inflation numbers more than a retiree is. So there's a lot of ways that a retiree can, because they have no work schedule, they have not as much to worry about that they're really tied to, that they can kind of manipulate inflation to a degree in their own favor. So I think we had a great conversation just the other day with a client about that.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're trying to help people to appreciate is inflation, like Murs said, is a concern. We need to think about it, but we don't need to overly fret over it. Sometimes we get into the media, and the media wants to talk about inflation, and maybe different ones want to talk about potentials of hyperinflation. Historically speaking, that happens for a few years, a couple of years. It doesn't affect, though, a decade or 20 years. And so don't let that idea of inflation be a stress, but at the same time, don't forget it. That's our message. Okay. So, by the way, we know we've gone through a lot of numbers, and I always remind people of this. Make sure you go to our website, which is pomwealth.net/blog, and there'll be an article on this topic of inflation, of which all those numbers have been written in that article. So we invite you to go visit that. And also make sure you visit and look right to the right-hand side of the website where you see our masterclass, which is 3 Keys to Secure Your Retirement. We invite you to be able to listen to that. We think it'll be quite helpful. But thank you very much for listening today. We hope this has been helpful. We'll talk to you again next week.